What's going on, everyone? So, Gale Weathers, upcoming Scream 7, is going to be very interesting to see how is she portrayed. What kind of development does she continue to progress in, if any? I mean, Scream 6, she might as well not even have been in the film, but she is supposed to have more of a central focus, her and Sidney Prescott. Obviously, the Meeks twins are expected to help Gale Weathers, and they're kind of teaming up together. And so there's a lot of directions in which they could go with Gale. I'd like to see a little vulnerability. I'd like to see a little, moment with Dewey, because now that you got Sidney back, I still maintain one of the biggest mistakes Scream 5 made was not giving us a moment of Sidney processing Dewey Riley. I'm not saying she had to break down and be an emotional wreck or something like that, but just a quick little sequence. Again, that was her big brother, her protector in so many ways. The one person in her life that she could truly count on whenever she needed. But Gale Weathers, Sidney Prescott, we'll see what kind of their relationship is. Auntie Gale to Tatum, how is that relationship? How is her relationship with the Meeks twins? There's a lot that you need to see and kind of break down. I mean, Sidney and Gale have always kind of had a little bit of that love-hate relationship. There are even reports that they could potentially kind of get in a little another spat and then kind of have some reconciliation. But Gale Weathers, right? We got kind of, again, everything's a rumor until we actually get the film, so always take everything with a grain of salt. But we got rumors a couple months ago now, maybe it was about a month ago now, about Gale, dealing with kind of cancel culture and her kind of being in this different spot that she's never really been in, and her trying to navigate those struggles and frustrations. And it kind of made me think, I did the video on kind of, that report, or not report, but rumor. There we go. And I don't know, I just was thinking about the situation. Obviously, doing my research for the Scream stuff to provide Scream videos for everybody. But I was thinking, when you think about Gale Weathers, does she get to a point, do we get to see her in a bit of a desperation state? Similar to what we saw in Scream 4, right? Because, part of the thing that sparked, I literally watched Scream 4, yesterday or day before, depending on when you're watching this, a couple days ago. But it was on TV because, it's Halloween season, spooky season. And, watching Gale and her, like I talked about, from Scream 96 to Scream 4 in particular, she had probably the best arc overall. I mean, Sidney's arc, don't get me wrong, was great. But, Gale going from, essentially being somebody that would push you to the ground so Ghostface can take you out just so she can write about it, to literally being a stay-at-home wife and, baking and, doing the whole Susie Homemaker type thing just for Dewey Riley so he could be the sheriff after she wanted nothing to do with Woodsboro, right? I mean, even in Scream 3, she talked about, Scream 3 talking about the events after Scream 2, where she was talking about, days felt like years in Woodsboro and all that. But you saw in Scream 4 her, the Ghostface thing ends up happening, and then all of a sudden she's right back in action. She wants to get all the details, and she wants to, solve and crack the case, because that's what she does, right? I mean, she even talks to Dewey and says, this is how it works. You catch the killer, I write about it type thing. And then she has that moment where she's at her computer and she's like, I don't know what the F to write about. And you just saw this sort of desperate Gale who was excited to kind of get back into the saddle and potentially write the next book and all that, right? And I'm curious if that's kind of a similar approach that we get for the upcoming Scream 7, right? To have Gale Weathers dealing with the cancel culture, potentially being in this spot of, a little bit of desperation, right? Maybe the career's on the decline. She lost her show, right? You have all these things to where Gale has this sense of desperation that could, be detrimental to her and Sidney and the Meeks twins and, Sidney's family. I mean, maybe that's what kind of creates and sparks, Sidney and Gale's kind of feud at some point, assuming that's accurate, right? Gale, I could see Gale putting herself in situations and potentially putting the Meeks twins in situation that, because she feels desperate or she needs to get something done, or she wants to get the scoop on something, or, there's a rival, cameraman and, or reporter and all that stuff, right? Like, so now she's kind of in this mix where she's not making the smartest, wisest decisions. She's making decisions based on her frustrations and her, I need to get back into the good graces again. I need to be the person that people, talk about, and I need to get back to being the important Gale Weathers, rather than, the situation I'm in where everyone wants to get rid of me, and I lost my show, and I lost it, right? Like, I think you could see a potential path and story to that, right? Like, Scream 4, she was desperate because, it was essentially boredom, right? She's just like bored out of her mind. She's hoping something happens, something ends up developing. It doesn't end up happening, it doesn't develop, and then all of a sudden Ghostface comes along, and, and writer block, I don't forget the writer block. I have Ghostface to write about. This is what I do. And it kind of put her in a spot. And then, like I said, she ends up getting stabbed, almost dies, right? Like, because she just put herself in bad positions, right? Bad spots. So to me, I think you could do something similar, but it would still be different enough to add some creativity to where Gale, she's desperate, but it's a different type. It's not desperation out of boredom. It's desperation out of losing her career, right? She doesn't want to lose her career, so she tries to go a little too hard. She tries to do a little too much. She's putting herself, like I said, in bad spots, bad positions that are detrimental to not only herself, but putting, the Meeks twins in jeopardy, and Sydney, or maybe Tatum or something, right? Like, there's things, like, I could see her, if she really promised to take care and look after the Meeks twins, to put them in a position, I could see that affecting her and having an impact. And, maybe you even have kind of like the Dewey thing where it's like, what would Dewey say to you right now? How would Dewey feel about what you're doing right now? You're reckless, putting other people's lives in jeopardy. You're doing all these things that are just not in the best interest of anybody but yourself, type thing. And, you kind of get this, like, revelation moment. I think you could do some pretty fun stuff with that. Because again, I mean, you're talking about a character that, like I said, she would have, Randy said it perfectly, right? Like, they stage the news. She puts up the news. Like, she's cutthroat enough to where she would, you think of the original Sydney, the original Gale, not Sydney, the original Gale. She was, again, she'd push you down, and, and the killer would be stabbing you. And it's why Scary Movie was so funny, right? Because it was like, Gale Hailstorm here talking, the killer, I'm just trying to do my job, right? Like, and just, like, it was great because that's how Gale really was in the original Scream film, right? She was very manipulative. She was very, like, whatever she had to do to ensure that she got the story. She didn't care about anyone. She didn't care about nothing else, right? So it'd be nice to kind of see, kind of, like, her kind of get back to that for a moment, and then, kind of get reeled back in. But anyways, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me not. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.